North Dakota surprises people who arrive expecting endless flatland. Yes, the state holds a vast open sky and long horizons, but it also contains a concentrated sampler of North America's prairie, badlands, river valleys, and glacial lakes, places where geology is written in layers and where human history is etched into trails, towns, and names. For nature lovers, a best of route here isn't a checklist so much as a gradual shift in scenery, from cottonwood-lined rivers to knife-edged buttes, from pelican-filled reservoirs to hardwood forests hiding in the north. Begin in the west, where Theodore Roosevelt National Park protects the state's most iconic landscape, the Badlands. The word Badlands originally carried a practical warning: difficult ground for travel and grazing, but it doesn't capture the beauty of these eroded hills. The park is split into 3 units: the south unit near Medora, the north unit near Watford City, and the remote Elkhorn Ranch unit tied closely to Roosevelt's own story. In the south unit, the first impression is scale: striped cliffs of clay and sandstone, juniper and sage, and the Little Missouri River winding like a dark ribbon below. The park's bison herds are not decorative. They are large, wild animals with the right-of-way, and visitors quickly learn the local etiquette. Stay in your vehicle if a bison is on the road, and never assume it will move for you. Prairie dogs whistle from towns along the loop road, and in the right season you might spot pronghorn, mule deer, or a golden eagle circling on thermals rising from sun-warmed rock. The park's name is more than branding. Theodore Roosevelt arrived in the Dakota Territory in 1883, initially to hunt bison, and returned after personal tragedy. The Badlands became his proving ground, shaping the conservation ethic he later carried to the presidency. That connection is tangible at the Elkhorn Ranch unit, where Roosevelt ranched along the Little Missouri. The ranch buildings are gone, but the setting remains: cottonwoods, river bends, and a quiet that makes it easy to understand why he called the region a land of vastness. The north unit, smaller and often less crowded, feels more rugged and intimate. Steeper terrain, tighter canyons, and a loop drive with frequent pullouts that frame the Badlands like a series of natural amphitheaters. If you want a short hike with a big payoff, the Caprock Coulee Trail in the North Unit offers a concentrated lesson in Badlands ecology. Grasses clinging to slopes, hardy shrubs, and the way water carves the land into sharp relief. The Badlands themselves are a geology classroom. The colorful bands come from different rock layers: ancient river sediments, volcanic ash carried from distant eruptions, and soils rich in minerals that stain the cliffs in reds, yellows, and grays. Fossils are part of the story too. Long before Roosevelt, this region held subtropical forests and swampy floodplains. Fossils of prehistoric mammals have been found in the broader Badlands of the northern Great Plains, giving context to the park's stark, modern appearance. In practical travel terms, Badlands weather is dramatic. Summer days can be hot and windy, storms roll in fast, and the landscape offers little shade. Carry more water than you think you need, and treat distances seriously. What looks like a quick walk across a draw can become a steep climb on loose clay. From the national park, a nature lover's guide naturally fans out to the state's other signature waters and valleys. One of the most consequential man-made features in North Dakota is Lake Sakakawea, the massive reservoir created by the Garrison Dam on the Missouri River. It's named for Sakakawea, the Lemhi Shoshone woman who traveled with the Lewis and Clark expedition and helped guide them across the northern plains. The lake's scale is hard to absorb until you see it. A long, branching shoreline with countless coves and bays, where prairie meets water like an inland sea. It's a major destination for boating and fishing. Walleye, northern pike, and salmon draw anglers from across the region. The wind can be fierce, and conditions can change quickly, so boaters treat the lake with the respect of open water. Lake Sakakawea also carries complex history. The dam, completed in the 1950s, brought flood control and hydropower, but it also inundated communities and transformed ecosystems, including lands of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. Visiting the region with open eyes means noticing both the recreational paradise and the human cost of reshaping a river. Nearby cultural sites and museums in the Missouri River corridor can add depth to the experience, connecting the modern shoreline to the older story of villages, trade, and river travel. For a very different North Dakota, head to the northeast corner and the Pembina Gorge. This is one of the state's rare places where topography and forest close in, creating a sense of vertical relief uncommon on the plains. The gorge is carved by the Pembina River, and it holds a patchwork of habitats: oak and aspen stands, prairie openings, and river-bottom vegetation that changes with the seasons. In autumn, the color can be startling: golds and reds spilling down slopes, the river flashing between trees. The Pembina Gorge State Recreation Area and surrounding public lands offer hiking, horseback riding, hunting in season, and some of the best scenic viewpoints in the state. It's also a stronghold for wildlife. White-tailed deer are common, and birders pay attention during migration when the river corridor acts like a natural travel lane. Pembina country is also borderland country. The town of Pembina sits near the Canadian line, and the valley has seen centuries of movement. Indigenous nations, fur trade routes, and later settlement tied to agriculture and rail. That history lingers in place names and in the way the landscape is used. Fields on the uplands, forested draws left to grow wild, and river bottoms that still feel like older terrain. If you're building a 15 best nature lovers guide around these anchor destinations, Theodore Roosevelt's Badlands, Lake Sakakawea's Big Water, and Pembina Gorge's Hidden Forest, North Dakota offers plenty of supporting chapters that round out the story. One essential stop is the Madahey Trail, a long-distance route that threads through Badlands country near Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Even if you only hike a short segment, it gives you a more intimate view than the scenic drives: the smell of sage after rain, the crunch of scoria underfoot, and the way buttes hide and reveal the river valley. Another is the Little Missouri River itself, the living force behind much of the Badlands shape. Find a quiet access point and you can watch the river's slow work: undercut banks, sandbars shifting, cottonwoods leaning toward the water. It's a reminder that the landscape is not static, even when it looks ancient. In the central part of the state, the Knife River Indian Villages area near Stanton preserves the setting of Earth Lodge villages once home to the Mandan and Hidatsa, agricultural communities tied to the river's fertile soils and to trade networks that stretched across the continent. Even for visitors focused on nature, this site reframes the plains as a lived-in landscape with deep roots, not an empty expanse. For bird and wetland lovers, the Prairie Pothole region in the eastern half of North Dakota is globally significant. These glacially formed depressions fill with water and become nesting habitat for waterfowl. In spring and early summer, the density of birds can be astonishing. National wildlife refuges and state wildlife management areas offer access, and the best experience often comes from slow travel on back roads at dawn, when the wetlands are loud with calls and the air is alive with movement. Along the Red River Valley, the land flattens and turns agricultural, but nature still shows itself in river corridors and seasonal migrations. Grand Forks and Fargo provide gateways to parks and greenways that follow the river, and they're useful resupply points if you're traveling long distances across the state. Back west again, the stark beauty of the Badlands can be paired with a stop in Medora, the small town at the South Unit's doorstep. Medora has a frontier-era origin, tied to railroads and ranching booms, and while it's a tourist hub today, it's also a practical base for early morning wildlife viewing and late-night stargazing. North Dakota's dark skies are an underrated feature. On a clear night away from city lights, the Milky Way can appear as a bright, textured band rather than a faint haze. A few travel principles make North Dakota more rewarding. First, distances are real. The state is large, and attractions are spread out. Plan fuel stops and keep an eye on the weather, especially in shoulder seasons when snow or thunderstorms can reshape your itinerary. Second, treat wildlife and landscape with respect. Bison and elk can be unpredictable. Prairie rattlesnakes exist in Badlands regions. Ticks can be present in grassy or wooded areas, and summer heat can be dehydrating even when the air feels dry. Third, consider timing. Late spring brings wildflowers and migrating birds. Summer offers long daylight and warm water on Lake Sakakawea, but also crowds in the national park. Early fall can be spectacular in the Pembina Gorge, with cooler hiking weather and vivid color. Finally, let the state's contrasts do their work. North Dakota is often described in single images: prairie, oil fields, winter. But the nature lover's version is more layered. A presidential story rooted in a rugged river valley, a vast reservoir that carries both recreation and remembrance, and a forested gorge that feels almost secret. Visit with patience, drive slowly, stop often, and you'll find that the real attraction is the way the land keeps changing, sometimes within the span of a single day's drive, while still holding a coherent sense of place under that enormous sky.